Welcome to Supply Chain Now, the #1 voice of supply chain. Join us as we share critical news, key insights, and real supply chain leadership from across the globe, one conversation at a time.
Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be. Scott Luton with you here on Supply Chain Now. Welcome to today's show. Folks, today we're continuing one of my personal favorite series, one that we like to call the Now Generation, where we sit down with students and professional educators from some of the leading supply chain management programs around the world. Today, we've got a great show teed up as we meet with not only a couple of incredibly bright supply chain students, but also a professional educator, a practitioner, and a media star of global supply chain. We're going to be talking with folks from Ryder University, a private university based up in Lawrence Township, New Jersey, where their supply chain program has been churning out incredible leadership talent for years. So stay tuned for a great conversation featuring brilliant minds that will be setting out to change how supply chain is done now and in the years ahead. All right, let me introduce first a special friend of the show and my official co-host, kind of a guest star and a co-host here today. So Kevin Lawton is an educator, a national speaker, an entrepreneur, practitioner, and a supply chain rock and roll star. He serves as adjunct professor with the business department at Ryder University, where he focuses on, you guessed it, supply chain management. He's also founder of the popular podcast, the New Warehouse podcast, which he created to give individuals, especially in the logistics, distribution, and transportation space, a platform to share their ideas and insights on the industry. Hey, Kevin, great to have you on the show today, my friend. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me. Happy to be here and definitely happy to talk about this topic and get some of these students involved for sure.
I'm with you. It is going to be excellent. Appreciate your facilitation. And we didn't get a chance. I think you were you had a lot of work going on.
Yeah.
And man, my dogs were barking by the time I left the show floor at Manifest, right?
Yeah.
But we're going to make sure, since we miss each other there in person, we're going to hook up at ProMat, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely. We're gonna be there. And we'll definitely connect out there and talk some supply chain, just have some fun, I'm sure.
That's right. That's right. With 50,000, goodness, of
Yeah.
our industry friends. Okay. Well, Kevin, it'd be one heck of a show if it was you and me, but it's going to be even better because you brought a couple of dynamos with you, and I'm going to introduce them really quick. Starting with Aiden Clements, a third-year student, aka a junior, at Ryder University, where he is pursuing a bachelor's in supply chain accounting, or a supply chain rather, and accounting. How about that? It's going to be a dangerous supply chain high finance guru.
Oh,
Now, Aiden is also an intern at GE Aerospace, where he's worked in sourcing during 2024, and he's returning this year for a new role in manufacturing, engineering, and supply chain operations. How about that?
yeah.
But get
Nice,
this.
nice, nice.
He he has spent time. I like your smooth jazz, nice there, Kevin. We need more of that
It's got a
here.
nice voice.
Get
Yeah.
this though. Aiden has spent time at Oxford University and then in Tokyo, Japan, where he studied entrepreneurship, supply chain structuring, and a whole bunch more. Aiden, welcome in. How you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for asking. It's a real pleasure to be on here and be a part of the show. I'm really
Hey,
excited to talk more.
we are too. I'm ready to learn from you both. And we got 1-2 punch here, Kevin. Right? We got Aiden on one
Yes.
end, and the number two, Chase Tomlinson, a junior at Ryder, where he's pursuing a double major, global supply chain and business data analytics, with, as if that's not enough, with a minor in information systems. I bet he studies all the time. Chase also serves, get this, president of the newly refounded Global Supply Chain Association. And this coming summer, Chase is going to be serving as an area manager intern with the Big A. That's right, Amazon.
Mm.
Excellent stuff. Chase, welcome in. How you doing?
Hi, I'm doing fantastic. I'm very excited to be here.
Well, great to see you as well. All right, Kevin. Man, I really appreciate. Great to finally have you here, and I'm so glad you brought Chase and Aiden. But I like starting with some fun warm up questions. Is that an okay approach with you?
Yeah, it's okay with me. Let's warm it up.
Okay, let's warm it up. Warm it up. Okay, so Aiden, we learned in the pre-show that you're from a really unique town in Pennsylvania. So give us that town and give us uh, why it's so special. And then I got a little food question for you too.
Okay. So my town is Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania. So our town is named after the famous athlete Jim Thorpe. We have his body, and we're really known for being the small Switzerland of America. Very tiny population, old buildings, mountains everywhere. And within a 17 square mile area, we have 4,200 people. So very tiny, but a large area. And I love
Big
it.
heart too.
Oh,
Big heart.
very big heart.
You know, Kevin,
Yes.
when folks say we have his body, that can also be interpreted as he's buried
Yeah,
in our
yeah.
hometown.
We have his body, and what are you gonna do with it? You know.
Yeah.
Oh, all right.
That's
So,
right.
Yes,
so
beautiful area. I would say I've been there, and there's like a train, right, with a glass
Yes.
roof. I've been on the train. Highly recommend. Highly
Yeah.
recommend.
Especially
Okay.
in the fall time. It's
Yes.
gorgeous.
Yeah.
man, glass roof train. And that foliage up there, I bet it is gorgeous. So let me ask you this. Aiden, we love talking food around here. Love it,
Mhm.
love it, love it. So make us hungry. Where's the best place to eat in Jim Thorpe,
Oh.
Pennsylvania?
I would say, as a local, my recommendation is a small restaurant called Marion Hose, and they serve a lot of really just pretty outlandish kind of food. I mean, my favorite thing to get there is probably called the Pig Lebowski with a croissant,
Oh, okay.
kielbasa, stone ground mustard, a lot of really good stuff in there, and sauerkraut.
Oh,
It's
you had me
fantastic.
at the name, the Pig Lebowski. Kevin, that is
Yeah,
pretty good, pretty good
that's a
name.
good name. I like that.
Uh, it reminds me, and any of our listeners know I've worn this out, but it's true. I had a high school colleague that ended up getting a pot-bellied pig as a pet. Yeah, it's something
Oh.
I guess in South Carolina maybe. And he called it the notorious PIG. We got a lot
There
of
you go. There
a
you
lot
go.
of good stuff out of that. Okay, Chase. Now you're from Monroe Township, New Jersey, and geographically, where is that in the state?
So I would say dead center if you believe in Central. I know it's been going on for a while,
I'm a
but
believer. I'm a believer.
but if you throw a dart, you hit right in the middle of New Jersey, you'll find us, home of the
Really?
Falcons. And unfortunately, we don't have a Falcons
No, and no glass
body.
and no glass
Uh,
roofed train probably in Monroe Township, but that's okay. You do
Not yet.
have
Mhm.
great places to eat. What's one of your favorite places to eat there in Monroe Township?
One of my favorite places, Monroe Township. I would have to say they have just amazing pizza spots.
Ooh,
Amazing.
that's true.
Kevin, I can eat pizza all day, every day, and it doesn't jive with this diet I've been on this year. 'Cause when I meet you at ProMat, I'm gonna be hopefully about 20 pounds lighter, Kevin, and struggle is real.
Oh
But
yeah,
pizza,
I'm not gonna recognize you.
I, I'll probably still have these big cheeks, Kevin, is my hunch. They're a little tougher to get rid of. But Kevin, pizza in Monroe Township, ever been there?
Monroe Township, I've been there. I have worked there. There are a ton of warehouses in that area, so I've certainly spent a lot of time around there, and I've had some pizza around there too before as
Really?
well. Actually, yeah.
If there is somewhere that has a warehouse in it, Kevin, I'm sure, knows about it. So we're going to dive into that here in just a second. Kevin, as we're getting to know each other here, before we get into supply chain stuff, I want to get to know you a little better. So
Sure.
you are the pride of Princeton, New Jersey, I believe, right? Um, tell us,
I don't know about the
tell
pride, but I'll take it.
no. Well, then someone's got to rework the Princeton website. We got to add your name to the distinguished luminaries. So tell us a little bit, if you would, about your background and your current roles, and your practitioner journey.
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, so I grew up in New Jersey, hence why I know a little bit about Monroe and that area. And I went to school at Ryder University, so was in the seats that Chase and Aiden are in now as well, but actually majored in entrepreneurial studies and minored in event planning and arts administration.
Interesting.
Yes, yes. And then didn't know what I wanted to do, so I just decided to to stay at school and got my MBA from Ryder as well. And then I needed to work, so I had to find something, and I started in the supply chain side. I started actually as a temp in inventory control department at Simon and Schuster, the book publisher.
Yep.
Worked there in inventory control, kind of really enjoyed it. I will say, kind of all the problem solving and figuring out inventory discrepancies between systems and troubleshooting, root causing, all that stuff. And then decided to kind of embrace that and started my, I would say, the real journey of the career in warehousing there, and been working in warehousing now for about 12, 13 years. And around the time where I decided to embrace that is also when I decided I wanted to learn more about the industry. Couldn't find anything that was particularly interesting at the time to learn from as a younger person then. And this was, probably like 2016 or so, right?
Hmm.
And so I decided to start something. And I was going to do a blog initially, but it morphed into being a podcast. And that's how the New Warehouse podcast came about. I've been doing that since 2019. So we're about 6 years since the first episode released now. Did that on the side for a long time, as I was also working as an inventory control manager, plant manager for a couple different companies, and then got the opportunity to open my own fulfillment center on a contract with somebody. So I decided to take the full leap on entrepreneurial journey, and I guess that was 2021, beginning of
Okay.
22, something like that. And then at the same time, also got the opportunity to teach at Ryder University. So started teaching there as an adjunct professor the fall of 21, and I'm now in my 8th semester. And full-time focus is the podcast and growing that as a media company and being involved there, and do some consulting, some advisory work, and then also the teaching as well. And I will say Chase and Aiden are actually in my class currently, so we're going to see how they do today, and that'll have some sway on their final grade potentially. So
Great.
we'll see what happens today.
Wow.
They didn't
Earn
know this
extra
was a
credit if we do
test.
well.
Yeah, they didn't know this was a test. So we'll see.
Kevin, I got a feeling that they
Yes,
are going to pass the test with flying colors, is my hunch.
I think so too. I
Um,
think so.
and I'll tell you though, I never had an opportunity way back in the Stone Ages when I was in college to get on a podcast with one of my professors. So they got standards right here as part of the conversation. So we'll see. Um, Chaden, Chase and Aiden. Yeah, it's interesting. Kevin, yeah, I don't know about y'all, but I could kind of picture that journey that Kevin walked us through right there,
Yeah.
right? And
Absolutely.
a lot of different elements of supply chain management, of course, dominated with warehouse management. And I'm so glad that you resisted, Kevin, the urge to do another blog and to do the New Warehouse podcast, because warehousing needs love and amplification,
Yeah.
and insights and best practices and technologies being shared, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I say the real reason why I didn't do the blog is because writing and editing was much more time consuming than just sitting down and talking on the microphone. And when I decided to start it, I was in the middle of like a huge project, new distribution center startup, and putting in all these systems and everything. So yeah, there was not very much time to think about editing something very closely.
I love it.
Yeah.
And so you keeping it real. That's one of my favorite
Yeah.
aspects of what I would consider the best podcast, right? You keep it real, humanity on full display. And I'm like you, I hate editing too.
Yeah.
I am not. It's not my superpower. Um, all right, one quick surprise question for Chase and Aiden before we start picking their brain on supply chain. So beyond the New Warehouse podcast, what is one of your favorite podcasts, or if you don't do podcasts as much, um, live stream or streaming shows, or you name it? Aiden, let's start with you.
Ooh, that's a tough question. I don't really
On the
watch
spot.
too much in my free time, to be honest. I mainly read.
Okay.
I've been into
You're
the Lord of the Rings currently. I've been reading through all
okay.
the books. Yeah.
You're
Okay.
gonna read all the. There's like 27 of them, right?
Luckily, I only have 4. I'm on the second
Okay.
one currently.
Okay. You're gonna
Nice.
have to give us a review.
I definitely will.
You could do a podcast about that,
Oh
actually.
yeah.
Should, yeah.
Right.
Really go into the lore of the Lord of the Rings.
Yes.
Great.
I hear that as a big thing. All right. Chase, same question for you. Favorite podcast or show or you name it.
So from Aiden, I am actually the opposite. I am more of an audio person. So I love audiobooks. I feel like it's a great way to learn while being active. I would say I in preparation for this podcast, I did get to watch a lot of your other episodes. So if I had to pick a favorite, it would be this.
Ooh, okay. You
Okay.
didn't
Extra
you didn't
points right there.
grade or evaluate too tough on those other episodes, did you, Chase?
No, not at all.
Okay.
We'll see.
I hope I cut the mustard, Kevin.
We'll see
Hey,
if my
Kevin,
research works.
one final question, Kevin, for you.
Sure.
I say this a lot, and I bet as a fellow creator, I hope it resonates with you too. No one in the world cares about episode numbers other than the folks that create them, right? It's like a badge of honor though, because you can
Mm.
almost like think back through each one. So now that the New Warehouse podcast is 6 years running, roughly how many episodes have you done?
So we do a couple different things now, but I'll say the regular podcast normal release cadence. I think we're at episode 563,
Okay.
somewhere around there. Yeah.
Did y'all hear he said he thinks he knows it's 563 on the nose, I bet.
I'm trying to remember what was the number we released yesterday on Wednesday. 566 actually.
Okay.
There we go.
That's a bunch of tough questions, good questions, great times, informative conversations. And it's a feat, really. It is a feat. So I'm looking forward to the next 566, Kevin Lawton. Okay, let's get into supply chain stuff, Kevin, Aiden, and Chase. So let's start.
Sure.
Let's do it with this. And Kevin, I can't wait to get your take on what we hear from Chase and Aiden here. And I want to start with this. And Chase, I'll start with you. We're going to reverse the order here. What's one topic or trend, issue, development, you name it, across global supply chain that really has got your interest and attention right now?
I would say, through my experience in just trying to find different internships, one topic that I've been really interested in is, I would say, almost the hidden concentrations that's in supply chain, because supply chain covers a lot of different roles, a lot of different responsibilities. And so, in my experience, I started out as in warehouse management, and right now I'm moving over slightly to other fields. But I feel like, once again, those concentrations of, if you're in warehouse, are you going to stay in warehousing, or do you move over to like procurement or sourcing? And it's just how you're able to bounce around.
That's a great answer. And Kevin, that
It is.
we have probably done about just kind of rough, probably 50 episodes of the Now Generation where we're interviewing students like this one. And that hidden concentration answer is the first to that question. And Kevin, I think I think it's interesting because prior to the pandemic, it's like the whole industry was almost hidden, right? Especially
Yeah,
for
a bit, yeah.
consumers that, weren't in supply chain. And even now, after, supply chain's kind of gone through this golden age of sorts where more consumers are connecting the dots with how they get stuff in 2 hours or whatever. It's interesting to hear Chase talk about the hidden concentrations, especially as the industry evolves, right? And how do we do supply chain in 2025 to meet, highly evolving customer demands, and expectations. Your thoughts on his response there, Kevin?
Yeah, I mean, I love the response. I think it's a great response. I think typically, in the position that I'm in as an adjunct, and we also do some things from like a mentoring perspective through ASEM too with some of the universities, and um, one of the questions I often get asked is, or students are looking for internships, right? And one of the first questions I ask them is like, well, what part of the supply chain do you want to work in? They're like, oh, I don't know, just supply chain, right? But to Chase's answer, I mean, there's so many different facets of that and those individual concentrations, and I think it's great that he's recognizing that. And but I think it also, shows the potential amount of opportunities there are in supply chain, right? There's so many different directions you can go in, and I think they all lend themselves to each other, right? I mean, if you have some warehouse management experience, like you certainly probably are touching a little bit of procurement or planning or dealing with that side of the supply chain too. So I think, no matter where you enter, like you can certainly weave your way around to all these kind of different parts. And I think to your point too, Scott, I mean, there's so much more of a spotlight and awareness on supply chain now. Supply chain now. Oh, see what I did there? So,
Nice.
unintentional. But yeah, so yeah, I think there is like that attention on it, and which is awesome for us, right? Who are working in the field and doing things around it. But it's also kind of highlights, just how many different things need to be accomplished and need to be done in the supply chain that ultimately support the business at the end of the day. And I think that it's great that Chase is recognizing there's all these different parts. And to any students, I would say that there's many different avenues, different ways that you can go down the supply chain. And once you're in the supply chain, it's pretty easy to shift to another part of the supply chain and figure that out, because there's a lot of interconnectedness there.
Yes. Excellent points. Interconnectedness. I'm going to steal that word from you if I can say it.
Sure.
So two additional thoughts there. And Chase, I'm going to circle back to you before I go to Aiden. I love the internship. And clearly, Chase and Aiden are taking full advantage. And probably one of the many, many benefits they're getting from their internship, and we may learn more, is uncovering all the different paths and these hidden concentrations so that they can better answer the question what they want to do in global supply chain. And secondly, we're going to touch on one of um, these aspects of global supply chain towards the end of today's show. But I would also argue like packaging. I know warehouses, Kevin, always been sexy, right? To use your mantra,
Always.
but packaging is really cool. And
Yeah.
how it impacts like our decisions as consumers beyond the sustainability plays and just like the user or the consumer experience, I'll call it. I mean, it impacts things we pick up off the shelf whenever we are in brick and mortar.
Mhm.
And I would argue packaging science, while it's made some strides, is still a bit more hidden of a concentration than it needs to be. Chase, before I go to Aiden, do you have one concentration or one skill set or one role in global supply chain that you've uncovered here in the last couple of years that you're like, this is a thing. I might need to take a closer look at this.
Uh, I couldn't say there's just one. Like we said, with global supply chain, there's just so much to learn from. I would say with each internship, I've been able to pick up a different piece of supply chain, almost like solving a puzzle. Right now, I'm currently working with Fastenal, where I work with product sourcing and procurement. So I really get to like interact with all these different companies, see what they make, and all the steps that it takes to get it from point A to point B. And I also really liked how the warehouse management, I'm a people person. I was able to interact with people to get a task done.
Love that. You got one of those really cool blue shirts yet from the fine folks at Fastenal?
Yes, I do.
Okay. All right. All right, Kevin. Good stuff. Let's get Aiden in here, and then I'm going to get Kevin's thoughts on Aiden too. So, Aiden, same question. One topic, trend, issue, development, you name it, across global supply chain. That's the top of your intrigue list.
Definitely. It's funny because I was having this conversation with my girlfriend's dad, who also is a supply chain professional. He said the
Okay.
biggest thing that he's noticed over the past couple years is this increasing awareness and importance of sustainability within supply chain. I mean, it's not even just helping the environment, but also reducing waste, which I think is really important because if you reduce waste, you're reducing costs as well. And a big part of this sustainability, like something specifically that interested me, was this company called CHEP, and they use plastic pallets and they rent it out to companies. So they developed this like circular supply chain where it's just constantly reusing it, it's reducing this waste, and it's increasing the efficiency as well. And I think this gives it's a big problem, and it really allows like the good constraints for you to think outside the box of how you're going to solve this problem to increase efficiency, reduce costs, but also to help the environment in a specific way. That's just, fascinating to me.
It is good
Yeah.
stuff. And Kevin, blue might be a theme here because Shep is also
The
well known for blue pallets, right?
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, good point there. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great call out there, Aiden, is that from, supply chain perspective, there is so much potential for waste. If you look at everything we do, I mean, from a warehouse perspective, is packaging there, right? A lot of packaging is just used temporarily. You look
Yeah.
at like pallet wrap, shrink wrap. You might just wrap a pallet just to move it from one side of the warehouse to the other, and then you cut it off and throw it out, right? It's kind of like a waste of plastic there. So there's a lot of opportunity there. But to your point, which I think is great that you recognize, is not only, is there an opportunity to do something for the environment, but there's also an opportunity to be more sustainable from a cost perspective too. Like I think that, when this first kind of discussion around going green, right, and being green came about, people were like, "Oh, that's going to cost more money because we're going to have to do things differently. We're going to have to add all these other steps or systems or whatever the case may be." But I think over time, what we've seen, especially on the supply chain, is a lot of steps towards sustainability allow you to also decrease cost and be more efficient with a lot of things, right? I mean, you talked about packaging, Scott. I mean, one big one, right, is on the packaging side, reducing that air inside the shipping boxes, right? Not only use less corrugate and less packaging material, but then also ultimately use less trucks because you're shipping less air, right? So I think that's great that you're recognizing that, and I think there is huge opportunity there still as well because we just have so much waste and emissions too from all the transportation, trucking, and all that stuff. There's tons of opportunity there.
Tons of opportunity. Excellent points there. And I love your call out on empty miles, the scourge of so many organizations everywhere. There's a lot more focus on eliminating empty miles, which is wonderful. But to your point, there's a reason why we call it continuous improvement. And in this
Right.
case, it applies to sustainability. There's always options. And to piggyback on what Aiden and Kevin both said, and it's interesting because for years, a lot of consumers have at least answered to polls that they're willing to vote with their wallets in terms of more sustainable products, right? That has more
Mhm.
proven sustainability in them. And then here in the last couple of years, I've seen more and more where there's a growing divide between what they say and what actually happens. I don't know if I subscribe to that or not. It's interesting debate. Um, but to Kevin, to one of your points you made, the great things to your point is we can take cost out, and that's always a great thing, right? And then in many, many cases, a lot of organizations will put out RFPs where they're looking for companies that have vibrant sustainability outcomes. So that might bring top line revenue. And of course, when we get more top line revenue and we can also add to the margin and the bottom line, that's a great thing. And then sustainability becomes a wonderful, more holistic business play. Uh,
Yeah.
Kevin, before I circle back to Aiden,
Mhm.
give you the last thought on what we're seeing sustainability wise. And then one last thing,
Sure.
AI. We're in this golden age of AI, and it's such a fascinating, intriguing thing. However, it takes so much power and energy. I wish I was in the server farm industry building those things because, man, folks are just cranking them out, aren't they, Kevin?
Yeah, 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 absolutely. I think that's one of the things is that AI is such a powerful unlock, right? And potentially in efficiency and productivity and doing things a lot faster, especially around like a data analysis perspective. Great for generating like crazy videos and things like that too. But from like a business supply chain perspective, certainly you can get to your analysis much quicker, right? But on the same side, like you're saying, Scott, I mean, super powerful from that perspective, but then also super powerful for consuming power and having to back up the server farms like you talked about to be able to support that infrastructure, which I think is pretty interesting, right? Because we look at how everything that's being done with AI, right? I mean, you were at Manifest, we were there, and it's any conference now, right? It's like every other company is talking about they're doing something with AI,
Right.
right? And you could just imagine how that continues to grow and exponentially grow. Like what kind of power consumption is that going to take over time as well? It's pretty pretty big.
Yeah. You know, not to be dramatic, but I think we are going to have a reckoning when it comes to our energy infrastructure in particular. Not just
Mm,
because supply chain, because all businesses are using AI, and not
yeah.
just due to AI. I think we really need to not only, of course, lean into the obvious things like green energy. We also need to move, I think, faster into the modern nuclear energy. We see some cool things going on there. So we'll see. But I think somehow we're going to figure out this two-step where we can keep making sustainability gains and figure out the power drain too. All right. So Aiden, circling back to you.
Mhm.
Um, so with sustainability, is there one company or product, or when you think of great examples of or powerful brands or cultures that you think are doing great work in terms of sustainability gains out there, is there any brand that you would associate really as maybe not an industry leader, but a company that's really on the move when it comes to sustainability?
Ooh, that's a tough question. I see a lot of products that involve sustainability on their packaging, but overall, I haven't heard of anything specifically that's really stuck out to me. I think the biggest one was probably the CHEP example that I gave you earlier,
Yep.
because the circular supply chain, it's great.
And let me pull Shaw while I've got Chase and Aiden before we move to the next question. I think this will be interesting, Kevin. Do y'all when Chase and Aiden, when y'all are making purchases, whether it's e-commerce or in stores,
Mm.
do you ever pick up a product or look at the label and get a sense of what they're doing from a sustainability standpoint?
Mm.
Do you before you make the transaction?
I think for me personally, if I see something that lists that it's sustainable, I definitely heavily consider it more, especially if it's only a couple cents higher. I mean,
Yes.
if
Mm.
it's like 10, 20, even 30 cents, that'll have me pick that product over something else that doesn't show anything about it.
Interesting.
If it's a couple bucks though.
Couple bucks now, we're kind of pushing it. Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Second guessing, yeah.
Yeah. Chase, same question.
I would say for me, as a good example of a company, I would say I had it, I lost it, but it's back now, I promise. I would say for a good company, I would talk about Amazon, just not from their perspective, from the consumer's perspective. How if you order a bunch of different items, you have the option to either get it all individually or you can wait till they're all together, package it up, and then ship it over to you. I feel like it's little examples like that where it's tiny steps that people can take that go such a long way. I know, especially for me personally, when I'm doing procurement, when I'm doing sourcing, if I have to order a product, obviously we're here to make money. We need it right away. But if you can hold up even just another minute, just because if there are other products I have to get that I can get from the exact same vendor, that way it's all packaged together. Once again, it's these little steps that people take that go an amazing way.
Well said, Chase. Well said. And Kevin, I'll get your reaction to that. I think Amazon just surpassed 9 billion orders delivered, and that might have been just part of Prime. I can't remember. I have to go back and find that, but clearly they're the big A for a real reason.
Oh yeah.
But I love that functionality that he just talked about that they have advanced when you're placing that order, and it gives you even if you don't pick it all the time. And I bet a lot of consumers are like, I still want my stuff tomorrow or in 2 days. I don't care what it is. There's probably still a large contingent like that, but even if you don't pick the options to group your boxes and to maybe delay it an extra day or two so they can hit the neighborhood once instead of 7 times in the next 7 days, at least it starts that muscle memory of calling time out and thinking about you know what we're doing, and hopefully bake that little layer in our consumer brains a bit more. Kevin, react to that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I do think that's like really interesting because it kind of puts I mean, it puts the ball like in the consumer's court, right? In a sense, and I've even seen in some instances, I think I don't know if they still do this, but I know when they kind of started the whole Amazon Day thing, I think they were kind of incentivizing it a little bit too, where you would do something like that, and maybe they give you like a $2 credit or something like that
Yep.
to force you to do that. And I think one of the other examples, from Amazon is now on some items you order, like they'll say like, do you want to reduce the amount of packaging used and have it delivered in the manufacturer's packaging, right? And so I think giving those options instead of just doing it for the consumer, I think helps with that kind of changed mindset. Like you're saying, like now the consumer is like thinking about it and saying like, oh, I guess that maybe does make a difference, and maybe I will do that, or I don't care. I
Yeah.
want it now, right? Depending on the mindset there. But I think giving the power to the consumer to be able to take that action and maybe incentivize in some cases, or whatever the case may be. I think is a great way to start to not just do it as a business, right, but then start like the consumer thinking a little bit differently as well. So like, how do we expand on that Amazon ecosphere, which relies heavily on the consumer at the end of the day?
Love it. We got to have that power of the consumer that you're referencing a couple
Yeah.
times. We'll be able to make so much more traction as an industry if we can get that mindset shift going. And when you place an order, I pick on socks all the time. I'm not sure why. Maybe because we all have so many socks, I bet. And do we really need that new pair of socks in 2 hours? I think it's funny, but at the same time, that's the mindset I think we got to shift and make some progress, especially when those socks are being delivered on their own
Mm.
in some ways, shapes, and forms. Okay, good stuff. Let's go back to um, what do you want to do in industry? And I love the internships you are doing and the impact you're already having, and I love the association y'all formed. We've got the president and the treasurer right here, Chase and Aiden, the Chase and Aiden administration. Um, let's stick with you, Aiden. What do you want to do in industry and why, including not just like the role and the why, but the change you might want to drive?
Definitely. I'm really split on two different roles within supply chain. I've been very interested. I've talked to Kevin about this is sourcing and procurement. I really love talking with people, and I specifically would like to work more internationally with other people because I think understanding business as a whole across the world, not just within the US, is really important because, with outsourcing and everything, it can really change the game. But I've also been really interested in planning and process improvement because I love solving problems. And I love when there are constraints that I need to follow that force me to get to a certain solution to bring costs down specifically. So I think within industry, I would love to do something targeted towards sustainability mainly and try to think of new ways to lower those costs, increase efficiency, but also do more for the environment as
Ooh, Aiden, love all of that. Kevin, he just loves supply chain. You could
Yeah.
almost, it's like such a cross functional answer. And I'm halfway kidding, but halfway serious because I think that's a reflection. A lot of schools, a lot of internship programs, they're intentionally kind of going back to those hidden concentrations Chase was talking about. They're intentionally exposing so many
Mm.
students to all sorts of different facets of the ultimate global team sport, which is supply chain management. Kevin, respond to what we heard there from Aiden.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, what I'm hearing is that he hates waste and he loves process improvement, right? So he's perfect for supply chain, I will say. That's the mindset to have, definitely. But yeah, I mean, I think that's a great thing, and I think there's so many potential ways to look at that. Like, no matter the role you get within the supply chain, because even if it's not a specific sustainable type of role focused on sustainability, like you still have so many opportunities to identify change which can have those sustainable dividends essentially, right, but will also like do that um cost and efficiency gain and cost reduction, right? In the same regard, and you could do that in any role in supply chain, really. I mean, if you look at the supply chain, no matter what supply chain you go to, I'm sure Scott will agree with this. There's some waste still, right? Even as much as they have optimized and improved and all this stuff, there is still something to be found there. No supply chain is 100% perfect, right? It's a constant change, it's constant evolution. So yeah, I mean, I think that mindset is great for like any part of the chain.
Yeah,
I'm
there's
with you.
always problems to solve in supply chain.
That's right.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And if you think, and even if there were, and there's not, let's just, as Kevin says, there's no perfect supply chain out there. And even if there were, it'd be very limited because customer expectations and demands are constantly and fastly evolving, and that opens up opportunities for our imperfect supply chain organizations to this day. Um, and also, and one last thing, if y'all go to, there's so many different ways that supply chain performance is being rated. One that I think is a great learning and um, compare and contrast opportunities, the Gartner Top 25, right? You got the masters category, and then you got a top 25 that they've identified public companies that are really successful when it comes to supply chain performance. And you'll see if you open up the books on all those companies, they're doing all kinds of things from a continuous improvement standpoint, not sitting on their laurels. Okay, Chase, what do you want to do in industry, including some of the change you want to drive?
So first off, I just wanted to piggyback off Aiden's point where supply chain is so global. I feel like that's something that we miss out every time we shorten it to supply chain instead of global supply chain. It's how you're working. One thing that happens on one part of the world affects the entire world. It's all woven together. That's why I find it so interesting. But for me personally, I have the double major minor. What are we trying to do with it? I what I like to do is I love global supply chain and I love the data analytics and info systems to back up or strengthen my supply chain journey. I love one of the things that I've been really interested in is definitely uh, customer demand. uh, I have an opportunity to work with Church and Dwight as a co-op during the later half of this summer, and it's either going to be for uh, warehouse management or it's going to be for customer demand planning. And I feel like both of those are something where using the numbers to support and help thrive the rest of the processes, even if to just make it a tiny bit more efficient, it's being able to connect what I'm passionate about and what I'm good with.
Chase, outstanding. I tell you, between Chase and Aiden, Kevin, and the companies they're being exposed to and working in, my internship in college was at a failing internet service provider, Kevin, and it was like a scene straight out of The Office. It was not a powerful learning experience, especially from a supply chain standpoint. But Kevin, comment on Chase, especially the power of analytics, which he clearly is very passionate about.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that I mean, Ryder itself, the program, I think is kind of it's uniquely positioned where we see a lot of students that have that double major. And any typically any students that have the opportunity to do that overlap and have that double major with data analytics, I usually encourage them to do that because I think coming into the supply chain world today and not having any reference of analytics or the importance of data or just understanding of what it can do for you uh, is not necessarily the best position to start in, right? I think it's essential at this point to be a part of the supply chain curriculum in some way, and I think it's essential for those that are working in supply chain because talk about Aiden's talking about finding waste and process improvement, and a lot of that comes down to crunching the numbers and analyzing the data to understand where that stuff is happening, right? And I think on consumer demand, which Chase is saying he's interested in, which I love, is that's super specific, right? On something to be interested in. There's a huge amount of like data and analytics that's flowing around with that. Whether it's how are you gauging what the market is seeing, and there's so many different channels now for consumers to shop through that it's so many different data sets to kind of look at from a demand perspective. You're looking at the traditional retailer, you're looking at e-commerce, you're looking at Amazon marketplaces, right? You're looking at TikTok shop in some cases. I mean, this social stuff, and there's so many different demand signals and factors coming into play there. I mean, having that analytics background, I think, is going to be key to be able to digest some of that and really set yourself apart a little bit.
Well said. Setting yourself apart and showing up every day.
Mm.
Two things that will increase your competitive advantage in business or as a candidate or as a promotional opportunity, candidate for promotional opportunity, you name it. Or if y'all ever start your own business,
Yeah.
there'll be great levers to pull. All right, I'm going to go. That's a great segue, Kevin, because we're going to go to Ryder University next. But before I do, it's interesting to hear y'all, Aiden and Chase, what you want to do and what you're passionate about. And then, I can picture Aiden at GE Aerospace and all he's going to learn, especially from a manufacturing and supply and manufacturing engineering and supply chain role. And then Chase talking analytics, working at perhaps the biggest analytical super competitor that the planet has known yet. I mean, Chase, you're going to be in heaven working at intern and Amazon. Um, Okay. So, Kevin, as we pivot back over to Ryder University and some of the cool things at the supply chain program there, that makes it tick. I want to start though before we get the students to weigh in to hear the opportunities they have. At these the internships, the experiences, of what they get exposed to, but to see how they're going to have these massive opportunities to advance their skill sets and their expertise and their experience. I mean, this has got to be it's got to make your day, Kevin.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I'll say, I take 100% of the credit. No, no, just kidding, just kidding. No, I mean it does. It's amazing, and I'm in my eighth semester now with Ryder teaching, and so I'm at the point where I've certainly been able to see some of my students graduate and now are in their careers, and one actually special moment recently that happened was there was a career fair at Ryder, and I was there, and I came in, and one of my students, I think it was in my first class or second class, he was a student from, was there representing his company, trying to recruit Ryder students for their co-op program. And he actually interned with me when I had my fulfillment center. He worked with me for a little while and mentored him a bit, and um, so it was great to see him, take pride in what he got and now come back and try and give the same opportunities to current writer students as well. But it is incredible to see how these students are taking advantage of the opportunities that Ryder tries to give them and tries to connect them with. We have a really nice board for the supply chain department, which helps with a lot of that. And I think we're also positioned in a really good area where there's a lot of opportunities around. There's a lot of different supply chain companies, from pharmaceutical perspective to like Church and Dwight, which Chase mentioned is like around the corner, and from like warehousing perspective too. So yeah, it's amazing to see what some of these students are able to accomplish and do, not only on campus but then external to campus as well. And it becomes more and more impressive the more my teaching journey expands at Ryder.
Love it. Full circle
Yeah.
on the front end of your response there, and that's got to be rewarding to see. All right, so Chase and Aiden, you heard there Kevin's expectation when he hits the 16th semester. Y'all are going to be
Yes.
there on
Yeah.
campus recruiting talent. Okay.
Okay, sounds
Um,
good. Make sure to stop by and say hi as well.
All right. So Kevin was sharing some cool things about Ryder University and the program and some of his favorite parts. And we're going to get to some of his favorite moments from the classroom here in just a second. But Chase, to stick with you. What's one or two cool things that really makes Ryder University's supply chain program you think really successful?
I would say start by saying, especially from being in the student point of view, especially after COVID, where supply chain is now really starting to boom, you have all different types of people that you're interacting with. I've met all types of people, even from people who start out with they just come to college for a degree and almost learn, and they happen to learn something along the way, or where they come to college to learn and they just happen to get their degree after 4 years. I think for me personally, I definitely came to just grow as a person and take every opportunity that Ryder presents. And one of the things that I love about Ryder is just how many opportunities they give you. We could go all day on all the roles or organizations that both Aiden and I are both a part of, most notably Global Supply Chain Club.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
Come make sure you join.
but it's to the point where I get to interact with amazing students who get to be peers with, amazing professors who I get to learn from and really interact with them in a one-on-one setting. I can definitely say in even the 3 years I've been here, I've lost at least 10 elections for positions, but Ryder has so many opportunities where I was still able to pick myself off, learn how to learn how to reinvent myself, and then still get another different 6 or 8 positions around Ryder.
I believe it, and the lesson you're sharing that you learned there is, we learn a lot from successes, right, in this journey we're on, professional and personal for that matter. But man, what we learn once we're willing to learn from failures, I would argue those are even more powerful lessons that shape who we are and what we go on to do. Um, Aiden, same question to you. What do you feel helps make Ryder University supply chain program top of the line?
Definitely. I think that there's two main things that really contribute to it. The first thing is with rider business as a whole. When you start out as a freshman or even a transfer student, they make you take a whole course of just every single function within business. So when you start, you have to take an accounting course, two of them actually, supply chain, marketing, data analytics. You get the whole spectrum of it because it really helps you understand what you're into, but also with supply chain, I think you work with a lot of different business functions already. And I think if you are in supply chain, having that basic knowledge helps tremendously. And the second thing that I think is really important is our supply chain program requires that you get a co-op or an internship before you graduate.
Yeah.
So if you have a really hard time getting one, you can reach out to professors and they will make sure to help you succeed in the future. And I think that's the most important thing because internships will absolutely kickstart your career in college.
Especially just
No doubt.
to piggyback off your
Thousand.
first point.
What's that?
I was gonna say to piggyback off his first point, the BIA project where you learn everything business related,
Yes.
amazing.
Yeah.
Kevin, man, that's got to be
Love
good to
it.
hear that instant feedback. I wish
Yeah.
we had a couple more hours, but Kevin, I know that car ride logistics is a thing in parenthood, right? And I want to respect time here. Let's switch over as we start to kind of come down the home stretch here with Chase and Aiden and Kevin. Kevin, we were talking. We had this networking event online a couple months ago,
Right.
and one of my favorite things that you shared there, and you can tell, you love what you do. You can tell it. Engaging with folks like Chase and Aiden. I mean, I bet you could talk a 6 hour long podcast episode on the, your how much you like that. But you shared one thing in particular about returns and reverse logistics and how on numerous occasions, as you've shared kind of what goes on with returns management and the reverse side, stuff coming back, and it kind of really opens some eyes and you almost see the light bulbs going off. Would you share a little bit more about that here? And do you bake that into each of your classes to make sure that you kind of fill in that blind spot that not just students have, but unfortunately a lot of consumers have too?
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, that kind of goes back to some of the sustainability discussion we're having too. But yeah, I mean, a lot of times within the semester, I mean, we cover, the core supply chain. And we talk about, plan, source, make, deliver, return, right? And when we talk a little bit about returns, a lot of the students are surprised to start to understand and hear about just the amount of waste that returns generate, and also how costly returns are as well for a business, right? And some I always use the example of sometimes you get something and uh, it's not right, and the company just says like, oh, we'll keep it and we'll send you another one, right? And I'm like, why they tell you to keep it, right? Because it costs them less to allow you to keep it than it's going to cost them to bring it back, process it, and get it through the return process. And a lot of students are like shocked to hear that, right? Like, how could it be so expensive and all these things that go into it? But it's a huge source of waste for just the world in general, right? I mean, you have all this stuff that comes back and needs to be inspected, right? Especially if it's apparel, because you don't know whether somebody wore it, didn't wear it, needs to be looked at. That takes a ton of time, right? A lot of times companies, it's not worth it to inspect it, right? Low cost goods, and they're either just gonna donate it or it's gonna end up in the landfill somewhere. So that discussion a lot of times for the students is kind of like a little eye opening, because they don't realize, like you said, like most consumers don't realize, like they're like, oh well, I just ordered a medium and a large because I wasn't sure what was going to fit. So the medium fits, send in large back, and it's out of my mind, right? But there's so much more that's happening with that large shirt after you send it back that I think people are just totally unaware of. It's pretty staggering, I would say.
Amen, 1,000%. And we've got to amplify that part of what goes on to hopefully kind of, we were talking earlier about, shaping the mindset of consumers. And the more they know, hopefully the more they're educated and the better. I'm very optimistic when I say this stuff, but the
Yeah.
more they know, hopefully the more they'll make different decisions that can help us tackle this tidal wave, to your point, of waste and cost and just sheer product that comes back in to our organizations. And unfortunately, to your point, a lot of it still, years and years later, a lot of it still goes to landfills or is destroyed or burned or whatever. All right, man, I wish I had one more hour, but I do not. Kevin, really quick, a lot of cool things going on at the New Warehouse podcast. What's one thing coming up that you're excited most about here in 2025?
Yeah, I think the most exciting thing about I do is always the conferences, right? Going to the conferences, whether we're doing podcast there or speaking or doing some adjacent events as well. So that's always exciting. Be at American Supply Chain Summit, will be there. Work conference will be there. Be at Supply Chain Point, which is like a newer conference as well.
Cool.
So yeah, a lot of stuff going on that front, and continuing to pump out that next 560 episodes that Scott's waiting on there. So lots of content coming all the time, and our networking series, Warehousing After Dark, which has been virtual and starting to experiment with in person as well. Be in person for the first time at ProMat, and we will probably be in person at the work conference as well with that event series. So
Awesome.
yeah, lots of exciting stuff.
Aiden and Chase, I'm convinced this is one of Kevin's bots. He's got clones given all that he's up to. So we'll test that next time. Hey, Aiden, have you been out to a supply chain conference yet?
No, never.
Okay, we got to make that happen. We're going to bring y'all back on maybe when you graduate or something, and we got to add that to your to-do list. Okay, Chase, how about you?
I'm in the same boat. I have not yet.
Okay, one, not the I'm probably preaching to the choir, but the power of networking.
No.
Chase and Aiden, I wish I'd learned that when I was like in college, like y'all are, but I did not appreciate that. Same for you, Kevin.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so the power of networking. We got to get you out, and because you'll need your network. There's an old phrase I've been saying a lot for whatever reason lately, but you got to dig your well before you're thirsty, and that really applies to networking because you're gonna need it sooner than you think, and it takes time to invest it and build it and nurture it. So anyway, Aiden Clements.
Yes.
That's your last name, right, Aiden?
Yes, that is my last name.
Okay, all right. Kind of like Samuel. What Mark Twain's middle name? Clements?
I have no idea. I haven't heard that
I
one.
don't know that one either.
I'm about to Google that. Anyway, Aiden Clements, how can folks connect with you if they want pick your brain, or they maybe want to invite you out to a trade show. That'd be cool to any of our listeners out there. Aiden, how can they track you down?
Yeah, the best way to reach me is through LinkedIn professionally. It's my link is www.linkedin.com/Aiden-Clements. So,
okay,
easy way to reach me.
So if you write fast, folks, do that, or we're gonna try to add a link on the bottom of the page and try to make that happen. And if you do, again, if you want to invite Aiden or Chase to a conference or something, reach out to us. We'll make sure to be the carrier pigeon, so to speak. All right, Chase, same question. How can folks connect with you?
All right. For anybody looking to connect with me, same thing. LinkedIn is always the best way to reach me. And if you can't, I see Professor Lawton every Monday and Wednesday. He'll let me know.
Me too as well.
I guess you're saying get in touch with me, and I'll get in touch with him, right?
There you go. Professor Lawton. That's got to be cool. I bet the first time you heard that, Kevin, you're like, man, Professor Lawton. Did it kind of strike you?
When I started teaching, I did go into the first semester thinking like, am I gonna do the professor thing, or am I gonna be like cool and say, oh, you could call me by my first name, right? But then I'm like, no, I'm gonna do professor. So yeah, I tell them, it's Professor Lawton until they graduate, and then they can call me Kevin. That's
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. Now, I've seen this on YouTube. Are you like a professor that has a bullhorn? So when your student goes to sleep one of your classes, you sneak up on him or him or her and wake him up with a bullhorn?
No, I don't do that. I don't do that because I was definitely one of those students. So
Me too.
Yeah,
Me
yeah.
too.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
thank-
So I'm not gonna, give him a hard time.
That's good. All right. So Kevin Lawton, let's make sure. So Aiden and Chase, we know how to connect with them. Great to have y'all both here. I'll tell you, y'all's future is incredible. Your current state is incredibly bright. So y'all have to come back and fill us in all the cool things y'all are up to. Kevin Lawton, obviously folks can find the New Warehouse podcast wherever they get their podcasts. How else can they get in touch with you?
LinkedIn is probably the best. Look me up, Kevin Lawton, or look up the New Warehouse on LinkedIn, and you'll be able to find me there. And I would say that's the best way.
Awesome. Folks, connect with this crew. Kevin, a pleasure. It's been way too long. I'm so glad we're able to have you here today. I look forward to seeing you in person at some of these industry shows. Appreciate the good work you're doing to help move the industry forward. And Chase and Aiden are two great examples. They are already, that's why we call it the now generation. Their impact is already being felt. And I cannot wait to see the cool things y'all are up to. So big thanks to all three of y'all. All right, folks. I hope you enjoyed watching or listening to this conversation here today. Again, I talk a lot about wanting an extra hour. Long live long form. I've been saying that lately, Kevin. Don't try to squeeze me into 17 minutes, but because we can't get to all the deeper topics below the surface level. So I'm so glad that we had the last hour here today. Hopefully you enjoyed the conversation as much as I have. But whatever you do, hey, find ways to engage and support and empower the now generation of folks that are matriculating through colleges and universities or technical schools that are going to be, the next big leaders changing how supply chain is done. Find ways to engage them. But whatever you do, on behalf of the entire team here at Supply Chain Now, Scott Luton challenging you to do good, give forward, be the change that's needed. And we'll see you next time right back here on Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.
Join the Supply Chain Now community for more supply chain perspectives, news, and innovation. Check out supplychainnow.com, subscribe to Supply Chain Now on YouTube, and follow and listen to Supply Chain Now wherever you get your podcasts.